Hit the subscribe button or visit us at auau.auanet.org.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Fighting Frustration Using Lean Methodology to Increase Clinic Efficiency. I have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker, Dr. Andrew Harris. Dr. Harris is an assistant professor of urology at the University of Kentucky and the chief of surgery at the Lexington VA Medical Center. He completed his residency at University of Pennsylvania and a robotics and endourology fellowship at the University of Kentucky. His research and administrative interests revolve around quality improvement, lean operations, and patient safety education and implementation. Clinically, his main interests involve robotic surgery and complex stone disease. He directs the Chief Resident in Quality and Safety Gap Year Surgical Program. He is a Veterans Health Administration National Shark Tank winner for his work on OR setup and standardization. Dr. Harris, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you all so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Emily, for that wonderful and kind introduction. Really want to say thank you to the American Urological Association for the opportunity to speak with everyone about a problem that many of us experience on a daily basis, and that's inefficiencies in a lot of our workforce. So really appreciate the opportunity and excited to be here. The chat is open. It's better if we can be interactive if we go along. So if you have questions, and even if we need to get off the slides a little bit, that's okay. This is for the attendees today, so we want you all to get out of it as much as you can. So please be interactive if you feel necessary and you have some good questions. So we appreciate that. But the objectives for today's talk are going to be, we're really going to talk about what does the proper environment for quality improvement look like? What does that appear in our everyday processes? And this talk is not going to be something where I tell you exactly what you can do in your clinic as far as changing how you check people in, or how you room patients, or how you discharge patients. We're not going to do a lot of those things today. What we are going to talk about is how we use the tools of quality improvement so that you can figure out what the problems are in your clinic, because they're all a little bit different, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're really going to look a lot about quality improvement methodology. We need some decent and very appropriate leadership skills to be to get through quality improvement in a successful way. So we'll talk about those. And at the very end, we'll talk some about standardization and why it is so important for quality improvement. So here's my disclosure. I do some consulting, and I do have some stock in admin. A lot of people end their talks with thank yous. I like to put thank yous in the beginning when people are still a little bit fresh, because a lot of people work very hard to allow us to do a lot of the things that we do that we give these talks about. And this is our OR quality improvement team in the top picture. And then we have some wonderful residents who help a lot with the project. That really allows us to be successful and have many projects going on at once. So a really huge thank you to all of them. And you will see a theme as we go through today. For effective quality improvement, you have to have a team. This is not a one-person show. And here is our team, and we'll talk more about that today. So I have an enormous amount of respect and admiration for each one of these people. They're absolutely phenomenal at what they do, and we would not be successful if it was not for them. When we talk about quality improvement, well, we need to talk about why. Why do we care? And there are a couple different avenues of why we should care about quality improvement. And they're fairly obvious. And one of them is healthcare value. When you talk about healthcare value, this is really the outcomes that we provide to our patients, their patient experience, at the cost of giving that care and that experience. And so we all want to have an experience where the patients get wonderful care. They're happy about their care, they're satisfied with their care, and it's at an economic cost that's favorable. And that's really what healthcare value is about. And so we care about quality improvement because if we can improve our quality in an efficient manner, then we improve our value. If we are not efficient, then costs go up, and then our value is not as great for the patient. So in this particular talk today, when we're looking at the clinic and how we make the clinic more efficient, that is also more valuable to the patient. And we're also going to talk a little bit about employee burnout and how when we wake up and our main thought every day is, how do we get to the end of the day? Like how if I can just get to 5 o'clock, right? And then the next day, if I can just get to 5 o'clock. That's frustrating, all right? And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that as we go through it. So when we talk about the healthcare value perspective, in the United States, we are not great when you look at the healthcare value we provide to our patients. And again, that is how good are our outcomes versus how much money we spend. In 2019, we spent $3.82 trillion on healthcare, and about 760 to 935 billion was wasted. And we have a lot of low value care. We all know that, we experience it. There are tests that we see, like we did not need to order the test for the patient. And the studies corroborate that. About 1 out of every $4 we spend, or 25% of the care that we provide in orders and tests, are wasted and not needed. And that's a fairly humbling number. And when you look at the numbers from the Peterson Foundation here on the left, when you look at our average life expectancy, we spend a lot more money than other countries and not have near as longevity of Americans compared to other countries, okay? When you look at our overweight or obesity rate, we want to be on the left side of this column. We're on the right and way more expensive. We're not even close to the line. You know, in statistics, that's an outlier. That's not unusual. That's just a flat outlier. Same thing in infant mortality. All right, you want to be toward the left. We are not. And there are obviously other reasons for this, but this is one of the reasons why quality improvement is important. This is a very interesting study, and if we provide the same care every day, our outcomes should be the same, no matter when we provide the services that we do. And so here is a study that looked at the day of the week and 30-day mortality for elective surgery. Right? This is not somebody who's crashing on the weekend. This is, you know what, I have some time this Saturday, I'm going to book a couple more cases. And they did a retrospective analysis of hospital episodes. And so it was hospital administrative data. They looked at 3 years. There were 30,000 deaths and 4 million procedures. It's a pretty good number. And they looked at the day of the week and weekends. And so what I would like for some people to put in the chat, if you can, is what do you think it showed? And I'll watch the chat here while I'm looking off screen. Does the care we provide the same every day? Emily, I think I'm seeing the same chat as everybody else, but let me know if somebody pops in. I haven't seen anything yet. Monday or Friday. Yeah, thanks, Barry. So that's a good thought. So maybe we shouldn't do surgeries on Monday or Friday. Anybody else? Worse on weekends. Yes, thank you. Worse on weekends. And so it's interesting. Everybody jumps to completely higher on weekends. Thanks, Donna. Higher on weekends. And we know that, but you think about how the hospital functions and the things that we do, why isn't it the same every day? All right, never on federal holidays. Yeah, great. Good comments. So that's great. I appreciate you all being interactive. It'll make this a lot more fun. So thank you. So what it showed were if you were operating on Friday, which Barry said, or the weekends, which several of you said, the patients are more likely to die. And again, these are elective surgeries. You do the same surgeries on Monday through Thursday, they're not near as likely to die. You do them on Fridays or weekends, they're more likely to have poor outcomes. And that's statistically significant. 44% on Fridays and 82% on weekends. And so, yeah, you guys are exactly right. You don't want to have an elective surgery on a Saturday. Your surgeon says, hey, I got time on Saturday. You're like, nope, no, thank you. I'll pass. And there's lots of reasons for that, right? But if we have an efficiently functioning health system where our processes are solid, it shouldn't matter. Yeah, Brittany, I think that those are great comments, and part of it is probably the staffing on the weekends and not having the normal operating room staff on the weekends that know how the surgeons do what they do, not having your normal functioning teams. And as we talk about teamwork, we'll talk a little bit more about how that may come into play. But yeah, exactly. And so when you start to look at things from a quality improvement perspective, you start to ask those questions. And then what we're going to talk about today is using those tools to kind of get the answers how you can improve those processes. Because this to me is inappropriate. This should not happen. Now what about burnout? Like, so fine, healthcare value is great. We all want our patients to do better. But what about us? What about us when we go to the clinic? If I can just get to 5 o'clock, if I can just get to Friday, I'm sure some of you all have had that feeling. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And so if we continue to come to work that way, that wears on us over time, right? It causes us to really maybe not want to go to work the next day. And that hurts us over time. And our workforce is also experiencing burnout. That's been a hot topic ever since Dr. North started working on this back in 2016. And on the AUA workforce, we continue to work on this fairly fervently. If you look at the most recent results, you see around 40 to 45% of our urologists feel like they burn out, especially those 65 and younger. And what's really interesting and super concerning is when you compare 2021 to 2016, our female colleagues are dramatically more burnt out than they were in 2016, and they're increasing their numbers appropriately in the urology workforce. And this discrepancy is widening. That's bad. All right. If we want to have a good, healthy workforce to take care of the patients we need to going forward, we need to understand more about why this discrepancy exists. And that involves listening and advocating. There's a big Twitter stream about this very topic going on right now. It was super interesting. And when you look at table 714, this is from the AUA census, and you look at the barriers with the greatest impact on professional success, when you look at males, lack of time is about 33%, but that's not the same for females. Females, lack of control over staffing decisions or scheduling, right? Come to work, no control over how your day's going to function, how it's going to run, and then you get into, if I can just make it to 5 o'clock. That hurts people over time. And so what can happen if we don't address some of these issues, if we don't work to make our clinics and our ORs more efficient? There's very clear data that burnout leads to substance abuse or dependence. When we start thinking, if I can really looking forward to that glass of wine at the end of the day, just calm down. It used to be a once a week thing, then a second 2 day a week, and now it's a 4 or 5 day week. And just to calm down from the day, that's dangerous. All right. Depression is associated with burnout. Depression, we know, is associated with suicide. The urology world was rocked recently with one of our colleagues who committed suicide. That's sad, right? And unacceptable. And we should be thinking about things that we can do to help us be excited and be able to function appropriately in our jobs so that we do not get burned out. We also see burnouts associated with our physical health. Increased proportion of diabetes in those who are burned out. Those are more likely to have cardiovascular disease. Until I started really delving into these topics a lot more, I never understood that these kinds of ramifications can happen from being burned out. Also good data that the more burned out we are, the staff in the clinic, the providers, the worse care we provide. That data is fairly clear. Burned out providers are also dramatically more expensive than healthcare systems. They leave more often, they have more mistakes, they have increased adverse events. And when we harken it back to healthcare value, we're providing less value for our patients, right? So we're doing worse and we're increasing their cost. There's lots of reasons why we should care about mitigating these ramifications and helping us function more efficiently. So what does a quality improvement in patient safety, that's what KIP stands for, what is nirvana? What is the perfect environment? And you really want a TSA type of culture where people see something and they feel that it's okay to bring that idea up. They know that your bladder scanner is positioned in the wrong place in the clinic, and it takes them 5 minutes to go get it every time. They do 50 of them a day. You want them to be able to say, you know what, this is really hurting my workflow during the day. You want to have engaged staff, people that are excited to make things better. It takes a little bit of time to get there. In our urology clinic downstairs, we've been doing stuff for a couple of years. And I went down there, I was down there 2 days ago, and they came into where I was seeing patients and said, hey, I have a great idea how we can make things better. Right? That's because we foster and we promote and we empower them to be able to make change where they live. And that did not happen 2 years ago. You want them to be able to feel comfortable doing that. We want to be cohesive. Yeah, we see this all the time. Staff not cohesive. They're butting heads. One group doesn't want to work with the other group. Really hard to move things in the right direction when that happens. When you can align these 3 things, that's when you get thoughtful quality improvement project. We have so many of our current projects. We have one looking on how we communicate better in the operating room, how we have better case parts, how we start on time. A lot of these projects have come from ideas from the staff because of the culture in which they're currently working in this kind of tips in the bottom. And that's how you get really good quality improvement. So we talked a little bit about how we change the thought process. And we're going to talk about what a good QI culture looks like and what a bad QI culture looks like. We have a wonderful profession. And I think COVID has shown a lot of us how wonderful our profession is. And we really were able to do a lot of wonderful things for so many people, which was phenomenal. And none of us show up hoping for a frustrating day. Nobody wants to get an hour and a half behind in the clinic. Nobody wants a patient to have a DVT. Nobody wants a patient to aspirate. We all show up hoping for good outcomes and a nice day. And we know that about ourselves, but I think we should also remember that about our colleagues and the other people with which we are in contact with every day. I hear a lot of times people like, oh, that's sabotage. Right? I'm sabotaging the clinic. I'm sabotaging the clinic. Nobody's trying to sabotage anybody. Right? That's silly. Everybody's trying to do the best they can with the processes that they've been given. And that's the system in which we work. And when we start to view it through that lens, all of a sudden you look at that other person and say, you know what? Let's take a look at the process in which you're working. You're not trying to sabotage anybody. You're doing the best you can with what you've been given. And let's look and see how we can make that better. Okay. So when you think about what a bad quality improvement patient safety mentality looks like, it's blaming. Well, you start with blaming. So somebody put in the chat, what is your first response when somebody blames you for something? I'm behind because you didn't do your job. Yeah, defensive, angry, absolutely. So I have 5-year-old twins. I have 4 kids. For this particular story, I have twins that are 5-year-old boys. They sleep in the same room. And the other night, I walk in there and there's a hole in there. Right. And I say, boys, what happened? I don't know. Both of them say, I don't know. It just happened. I'm like, the hole doesn't just happen, right? And then they say, well, he did. They start pointing to the other one, right? And that sounds kind of funny, 5-year-olds, but think about how often we do the same thing. Bewildered. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. And we get defensive. And then our first thing is to react. We're put on our heels, right? And now we're thinking about, oh man, somebody's blaming me for this problem. How do I get out of it? It wasn't me, right? People start doing this. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't leave the fire standing. People get reactive. And then they get angry. And then somebody will yell at somebody. And then what happens is people get afraid. All right. We talked a little bit about what the right culture looks like. When people get afraid, they won't speak up. Their first mentality is, how do I avoid the manager or the surgeon or whoever? How do I avoid them yelling at me today? Instead of how can I take care of the patients? How do I not get yelled at? And that's a bad place to be. When that happens, people hide mistakes. You've all seen it. You've all heard it. Right? That's how you get there. This is a very people-focused process. And when we focus on people about their processes, we will fail because we can't. It's very hard to make processes better when we only focus on the people and not the process. And we'll talk about that. So this is very wrong. Okay. What should it look like? Well, obviously, we shouldn't blame people. When you foster an environment where people can come to you with problems that they see either in the clinic or on the floor or in the operating room, they're excited to think about those things, excited to bring those to you. People start coming to you with ideas. They become very proactive instead of reactive. What that does is it empowers people. It changes. I can't change my workplace. Yes, I can change my workplace. And that's exhibited in our current environment here significantly. Several of the projects we're currently working on are because the staff felt empowered to bring those ideas to our quality improvement team. One of them specifically was looking at intraoperative communication between scrub techs when they were switching shifts for lunches or toward the end of the day. They felt like they weren't being safe. And so we launched the quality improvement mission, and it has been phenomenal. We never would have thought of that had they not brought it to us. We're also looking at how we make our case carts more efficient because they brought to us that they were having to pull extra materials that weren't coming on the case cart. And we studied it. It was taking 5 to 10 minutes every case. And we're worried about turnover time, getting the cases done. because we know people do worse the longer the day goes based on the studies that are out there. We never would have thought of that if it wasn't for them to bring it up to us. Okay, so allow them, they report when things happen. When that happens, that gives us the opportunity to go start examining those processes. That's when you have quality improvement. So that's why it's not as easy as just saying, fix your checkout. All right, these other things have to be in place before you can have appropriate quality improvement. And then when you do, it's something that it blossoms beautifully, which is phenomenal. And that's what you look at. When I first got into quality improvement, it was 2012. And I thought, pretty straightforward. You go from A to B, no problem. The longer I do quality improvement, the more I realize it's like the other side with the blue drawing. And it's unbelievably complicated. And it's never a straight line, and it's always more complicated than we believe it to be. This is a process map. And you say, well, I mean, why is it so complicated? Surely most things are not that complicated. When you start looking at them, and we'll talk later about starting small, you realize things are more complicated than you thought they were. This is a process map of getting a patient an incentive spirometer after surgery. And for those of you who don't know what that is just a little piece of plastic that patients breathe into and help pop their lungs back open after surgery at the base of the lung. And that should be easy, right? Go to the storage room and give it to the patient. As you can see, it's nowhere near that easy. Our residents have a difficult time making sure the patients have their spirometer. And the diamonds on here are decisions. Process maps are better when they have normal diamonds. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Look how many diamonds are in here. That means somebody has to make a decision in each one of them. And we're currently working on this project with our residents as they learn the quality improvement project. And currently, before we have started, only about 37% of our patients still have the same spirometer until it's not anymore. That's why we're looking at it. And when you look at this process, how complicated it is, you can see why. So always more complicated than you think it is. Quality improvement is also fairly complex, and it's a vast domain. And I think you can tuck a couple different areas into quality improvement. One is metrics, and the quality improvement and patient safety today, the science of quality council, they work a lot with metrics. Patient safety, and obviously in the quality improvement and patient safety committee, we look at patient safety. There's also process improvement. I think all of these things fall under the realm of quality improvement. When people ask me how I got into this, so when you look at these different books, the last name you will see is Harris, which is my last name. This is my dad and my brother. They are lean consultants in lean manufacturing. And the way I got into this the first time was I had a patient asleep on the table, and there was no laser fiber to treat the patient's kidney stone. The OR had to run down to their car, speed over to a neighboring hospital, grab a laser fiber and bring it back. And we were at dinner one day, and I was like, man, listen to what happened. And I said, that should never happen. And that's what launched me into really trying to have it become a better student of quality improvement. And when we talk about how we understand quality improvement, if I can get anything across in this talk today, and we're getting to the clinic stuff, it is this point here. People want to sit in a room and hear a problem and immediately come to the solution. If that is the environment in which you're currently in, which is most of you, you will not be successful at quality improvement. You can't be, because you don't understand the problem. People will say, we're understaffed. We don't have enough time. We have all of these issues. Just fix them. Let's launch money and let's launch resources. Let's hire people. What happens is 6 months down the road, and I know you all have been in this position because you all have, you don't know if it works. Like, I can't tell. 6 months down, I still have, but we hired 2 new nurses, we still problem. All right. Or you haven't figured out how to measure it. And so you don't know if you had that appropriate return on investment from the capital that was expended to make that change. That is a difficult place to be. And most of the time people are wrong, quite honestly. And I guess every time what I think the outcome is going to be when I start down one of these projects, and I am wrong every time until I get the data and see what the actual solution is going to be. When we talk about quality improvement, you have to start simple. And then we build in complexity as you gain experience, because I guarantee you what you think is simple will not be as simple as you think it is. Everybody wants to start with readmission rates, surgical site infections, throughput in the clinic. And those big projects need big teams. And we'll talk about that. So starting small is key. Starting somewhere like making sure the appropriate patients get your analysis in the clinic. Something like that. All right. Making sure the bladder scanner is achievable when you need it. All right. Then grow and learn. A lot of you on the call are leaders, right? Clinic leaders, physician leaders, nursing leaders, administrative leaders. And a lot of wonderful leadership principles are necessary to succeed in quality improvement. And my favorite one is the first one. Man, you got to be able to serve up. You got to think about how can I help everybody else get better? And that is my favorite part about quality improvement, is helping people fight frustrating processes and getting better. Because when that happens, man, they are so happy, the patients are happy, and it just is a phenomenal environment. But you got to be willing to get in there and get after it. Okay. The mentor leader, got to be able to teach. All right, our goal is when our quality improvement team moves to another project and we set up the sustainability auditing, if they still function efficiently, because we've taught them effectively how to be successful. You want to empower people. You want them to feel like they can accomplish. There's nothing magical about what we do as a quality improvement team. I'm going to show you this very straightforward. We're not magicians. All right? We want people to be able to take these tools and do them on their own. And I hope each of you be able to do that after that. You got to communicate. We are horrible communicators, me especially. I'm awful. And the more that I learn about communicating, the worse that I understand that I am. And I'm continually trying to be better. It's okay to fail. Okay. And people consider if you don't have a massive improvement in your project, if you didn't do well. That's not true. I mean, you learn what didn't go well, and then you change that in the next cycle. It's always about the team. No I in team, right? So it's about building the team and building the people. My favorite view of leaders is when they're on the bottom of the org chart and lifting everybody up, everyone else up around them. I love this quote by Albert Einstein. We're getting ready to get into the process. Okay, we're going to talk about that for about 20 minutes. I had an hour to solve a problem. I spent 55 minutes thinking about the problem, 5 minutes thinking about the solution. All right, that's what I just talked about. Most people don't do this. You've all been in those meetings. This is the problem, do this. Right? And it's hard for us, right? It's hard for us because in our clinics and in our operating rooms, we are very regimented. You see a patient with a certain complaint, you know how to fix the complaint. Somebody comes in and needs surgery, we take them to the operating room. All right, but think about all of the training all of us have to have. Doesn't matter whether you're a clinic administrator, you're a nursing administrator, you're a floor nurse, you're a clinic nurse, or you're one of the urologists. Think of all the time that you have spent preparing to be able to solve the problems that you see. All right, so it's hard for us to think that, oh man, I better spend some time figuring out this efficiency of flow problem before I start throwing solutions at it, because we have spent so much time learning, but now we know the answers, right, for what we do. Well, this is like stepping back a little bit. It's almost like re-education, okay? But it's a different environment in which we normally work. So here it is. All right, again, this is not magical. It just takes work. The key in quality improvement is choosing the process. There's a whole slide on that next. We'll talk more about that. Your success or failure is going to be determined by the first two steps. Okay, do you choose the right process, and do you communicate the right way with the key stakeholders? And that's going to be the top line and the front line, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Then you learn how to make process maps. I showed you the first one. I'll show you another one when we get to the clinic. When you make an ideal state map, what is perfect? An ideal state process map is what is perfect. If you have unlimited money and resources, what is perfect look like? And then you draw what's called a future state map, and I'll show you what that looks like. And okay, fine, we can't do ideal state, but what can we do? And some of you may say, well, why don't you just fix the current state map? And that's a great question. And I'll show you when we get to there why we don't do that, but because it pigeonholes you into thinking inside the box. And if you fix only the problems in the process, then you don't think about things that you can do to make the process different and design out some of the inefficiencies. Then you do PSA cycles, and you measure. You measure pre-data, you measure post-data. This is objective. You know if you improved or not. And then you standardize. After you standardize, everybody in here knows most projects regress after they are finished. And that's because they're not audited. And if you don't have an auditing plan, you will fail. Because much later, it will be like it was before. So you have to audit with your top line stakeholders, which are your leadership. How do you choose the process? Well, really, what's the scope? Okay. Are we just talking about the urology clinic? Are we talking about the urology OR? Are we talking about the entire hospital? What is the scope? And so it has to be controllable. If you want to change a hospital-wide process and you are a clinic administrator, that's going to be very difficult without significant buy-in. All right, so learning how to be involved in those projects is important. I struggled with this a lot when I first started. I was the one who changed the entire hospital. But I was one of the urologists and I wasn't in a leadership position and I didn't understand how to get them to buy into that. And I failed at that. I learned that. Which is good. Leadership has to be bought in. Okay, they don't have to understand what you're doing. They don't have to understand that you're going to do 17 process maps and 5 PDSA cycles, and you're going to use this many decimal points in how you measure. They don't even know that. They just have to know that you're working on clinical efficiency. They have to be able to support you and you working on clinical efficiency or whatever process improvement project they're working on. And then they have to be willing to hold people accountable. And you can have positive and negative incentives. And so in the operating room here, our quality improvement team, they have metrics that they need to meet every quarter. If they meet those, then they get an extra half day off in their vacation day. As you can imagine, it makes it a lot easier to roll that quality improvement project. I'm always a fan of positive incentives because I think people respond better to those than penalizing incentives. But some sort of accountability structure has to be there, right? Because why do people want to change if they're just trying to get through those? I mean, I got so much work to do. I'm already so busy. Why do we do something different? We've always done it this way. And so that's hard to change incentives on. You got to be able to measure. All right. Can you achieve what you're after? All right. If you want to change readmission rates, that's a very different goal to reduce readmission rates and to change improvement. Those are just different sizes of project. So is it one that you can achieve? And can you learn? What can you learn? Do you understand the staff that you will put your work into the stakeholders? Gimbal that. This is where most people fail. A lot of people want to solve problems from behind a computer screen. You can't. You got to go see. You got to go see. That's what Gimbal means. And you got to go see what's going on. And we'll do projects like, oh man, nobody ever noticed that. And anybody actually walk and look at the process? And they say no. So you will be amazed at what you see by going to see what's going on in the process of which you're trying to examine and start step. This is a risk-reward matrix. All right. You want to live where you don't have to do much work and you get a lot of reward. All right. And so you look at those things when you start a project. How hard is this going to be? And if it's going to be really hard and it's not going to make a big difference, don't do it. All right. If it's not going to be that hard and it's going to make a big difference, that's where you want to live. And there's so much low-hanging fruit in medicine, you can live there all day long. So communicate. You got to communicate with the top line. We talked about that. You got to communicate with the front line. Your front line folks, they know what they are doing better than anybody else. They can help you make things better. They know their frustrations, engage them, empower them, and they will help you. Our best ideas have come from the front line. And a lot of companies, that's how they do it. It's what they're telling you. They identify variability, and they go to the front line stakeholders and say, how do we make this better? You got to understand why. People got to understand why you want to be different. Always done it this way. Why? What's in it for them? Right? What's in it for your frontline staff? What's in it for your top line stakeholders? And a lot of times it's a better day for the frontline. It's a better day. You can get through the day better. Dictating change never works. Now, if you go as a leader and you tell your people, I want you to do this, or else you're going to fail. All right. 100% fine. Effective quality improvement hinges on communication. And so I don't know about you all, but I often hear something different from what the other people thought they told me. And I see this in the operating room all the time. I ask one of the residents, I say, I want you to do this. And then they don't do that. And I say, tell me what you thought I said. And almost always, it is not at all what I thought I said. Okay. I do this talk a lot in person, and I ask people to draw a pig. So in the chat, people put what you see in pig drawings. I give everybody the same instructions. Draw a pig. What do you see? Are they the same? Watch in the chat. We've got 92 people, so really somebody can put in the chat if they think these look the same. Yeah, they look different. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of the elements are. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Mara. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the things are similar, but they look very different. Yeah, different perspectives. So that's my next question to you. Why? I gave everybody the same instructions. Draw the pig. Why are they so different? And I love this because it shows how we are also different. We all have had different experiences. We grew up differently. We trained differently. We've been around different types of people, and we see the world differently. Okay, that's a good point. As that everybody did draw a pig. Absolutely. But if I wanted everybody to draw the same pig, then they didn't do that. But we all see the world so differently, and that's what makes us great, right? But when we talk about communicating with one another, realize people have different lenses in which they see the world, and they may not understand what you are saying the way that you're saying, as evidenced by the picture. This simple exercise has changed the way that I teach and operate now dramatically. Okay, I'm going to see if this will play. We're going to go for 3 minutes. Let me turn this on. Have you run this video? Let's see if it goes. If it doesn't, I have it played up over here. Let's pause this one. Internet's almost done with us. So let me see if I can move this over here. Can you all see the video?
Yes.
Ain't making any sense. Zari ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one.
What's up, the internet? You know what? I'm hungry. I could really go for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you guys think you can write down some instructions and teach me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah.
Then do it.
I knew we were gonna do this. I heard Dad talking to Mom.
Choke yourself on my hand. Sometimes they do what you tell them.
Dad, I'm done.
Step 1. Get 2 pieces of bread out. Got 'em. Get a butter knife and get some PB. Take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
No, Dad, with the peanut butter.
I'm just doing what it says. It says take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
Hold on.
Get some jelly, rub it on the other half of the bread.
No, Dad, open the jelly.
Well, it doesn't say to do that. Put the breads together on top of each other. Take a big bite. This doesn't taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to make it extremely specific.
Oh, good. I'm starving. Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop a bit of peanut butter out of the...
That means like a lot.
A bit means a lot?
In my world.
Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with the knife. All right? There we go.
You're doing better than before, though.
Open the jelly jar. Squeeze it onto the other piece of bread.
Nope.
Done. Closer. Get 2 pieces.
All right. So we're going to move on here. I love that video. It changed the way also that I teach, because we give instructions every day. So many of them ruin the patient. In the operating room, we say, take the bladder down. Walk the patient. And people don't interpret that the same way. And that's making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That should be easy. The things that we do are very complex, but think about all of the instructions we give every day. And then we wonder why some of those things aren't carried out the way that we thought they should be carried out in our head. And it's because we haven't communicated effectively. So that's how you fail. All right. You don't communicate it. Or you try to solve world peace. And also, we talk about quick wins. You want to do something small where people feel that change. And they're like, okay, let's try something else. Dictating change we talked about. Lack of buy-in. Right? If a leader tells you, you have my full support, go do what you need to do, and I don't need to hear anything else about it, that is not buy-in. You will fail. All right. And part of that is on us as quality improvement to go to those leaders and say, I appreciate that very much, but can you please just come walk down to the clinic and say that you approve of what we're doing, and then check in with us about every quarter or so. That makes a huge difference. We're doing a big one in the operating room at the university, trying to get in the room on time. We're about twice as likely to get in the room on time than we were beforehand. But about every month or 2 months, the leadership goes with us to meet everybody and all the work they're doing, tell them thank you, bring them breakfast, and then go over the numbers. And it's like Bob Iger going to Disney World, right? Everybody's like, whoa, why is that person here? This is great. Makes a huge difference. All right, trying to get too big too fast. People have a little bit of success in one PDSA cycle and say, all right, let's do it everywhere. That's dangerous. All right, you learn as you grow slowly what may not work in other places. You want to limit that variability as you grow so that you can deal with those things as you get bigger. Now, the worst thing you can do is say, let's roll this out everywhere across the enterprise, and then you may have missed one or two things you didn't think of, and it fails. You'll never get a second chance. Poor leadership. Leadership's got to understand. Leadership's got to be involved. You got to understand that we're trying to do quality improvement. They don't have to understand the nuts and bolts of it, but they got to understand what you're trying to do. All right, let's get to the clinic. Okay, the scope, office staff. I was a section chief of urology at the VA at this time, so yes, it was controllable. I was bought in, so that was good. It was easy to measure. We audited everything, and we could definitely make a change. And there was a lot we could learn. We didn't know a lot about how our patients moved through the clinic. And so on the impact grid, this was about as low hanging as it gets. This is our clinic process map. All right, if you are here interested in clinic efficiency, this should resound very true to you. A patient would check in. They would get room. Sometimes we might need the medical assistant or technician to get a urinalysis or something. Then the provider would see them. If the visit wasn't complete, then we might need a post-void residual, all right, or an IPSS. And then the tech would come get them and go do that. And if we weren't done, then we'd see him again. Like, oh, maybe I need one other thing. I forgot to get the symptom score or a questionnaire. And then we go in again. And we see that in our clinic. And that was what was happening for us. It was killing us. Okay. We had technicians or medical assistants going in 3 times to do things for the patient. And that was 3 different times the provider had to speak with them. And so we noticed nobody knew what the patients needed when they got there. There was lots of rework. The poor techs were running their feet off. We also didn't know which technician went with which provider. And so we would stick our heads out the hallway and say, hey, I need help. All right. And whichever tech was around. So sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 urinalyses because we said, hey, I need a urine. And they would all do it. All right. And what we found in our pre-intervention was about 70 patients. The first 2 flows are the best. Okay, these are patient flows. You check in, you get room, you see a provider, you check out. Or you see a tech, then a provider, then you check out. That's what you want. That was only happening 67% of the time. The worst thing we could do is flows 4 and 5. Where we check in, we get room, we see a tech, we see a provider, we see a tech, we see a provider, then we check out. And those of you who are hopefully smiling at the screen right now know this is very true. You guys see this every day. The red is how much time we were waiting, okay, in between processes, and the black was how much time we were spending with the patient. This is a spaghetti diagram. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Painful, right? You guys see this. This is a spaghetti diagram of what was going on. So we had somebody measuring this every day. And each different color is a different person involved. And this is one patient visit. I mean, there are 4 different people involved running all over the place. And then you wonder why you get behind. This is one of those things where a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so after we looked at this and we sat down in our team, this is what I told you all today, like, it's the tools that help you get to where the interventions are. This may not work for you all, and it's not difficult. All right. We said a provider had to be assigned a technician. So at the beginning of the day, when we needed the urinalysis or post-void residual, we knew who to go to, and they knew who to go to when they had questions. The medical assistants would start prepping the charts prior to clinic. And then every morning we would huddle. So the provider and the tech would huddle. I would get there 10 minutes earlier. You would go through the patients for the day. And like this case, this person's coming for lower urinary tract symptoms. Would you like an IPSS and PCR? This person's coming for a hematuria workup. Would you like the urinalysis? And we had all that settled before the day started. And you may say, Andrew, that's not that big of a difference. I'm sure it didn't change much. This was our new process now. Okay, remember I told you, what's your future state? This was it. They check in, the tech does everything they need to do, the provider sees them. If they don't need to go to the operating room, they check out. If they do, they see the pre-operative nurse and they check out. That is dramatically improved compared to this. Okay, and again, pay attention to the diamonds. We only have to make one decision. And that's, do they need to go to the operating room? So what did it show? All right, you know what? We made our intervention and then we measured it again. Okay, and this was just in the urology clinic. If you see, we had a 60% decrease, 63% decrease in our wait time because we were moving the patients through more efficiently. We had a 110% increase in flow number 2, which is one of the more efficient ones. And we had a 50% almost decrease in flows 4 and 5, which are those hugely inefficient ones where we go tech provider, and we waste a lot of time. All right, so we moved a massive volume of our patients into 1 and 2, which was phenomenal. Here's a spaghetti diagram, okay, afterward. Much better, right? One technician and patient. So what did we see? What do the numbers look like? Overall, just besides the one flow, we decreased our wait times by 53%. Our rework decreased by 48%, our technician trips by 17%, provider trips 50%. So we cut our times we would see them multiple times in half. We saved 6 minutes a visit, all right, of the actual visit time. And you may say, well, that doesn't seem a lot. You guys know you see a lot of patients, right? That equated to almost, an hour and a half a day. And so how did the staff feel that? Well, they felt it because they had time to take a break. They had time to go to the bathroom. They had time to eat lunch. We weren't rushed in getting our things done, and they were doing a lot less stuff. It's interesting in the beginning, a lot of the technicians and medical assistants said, listen, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And I just said, we just try it. If it doesn't work, we will change. That's okay. And they gave it a chance. And to see how they grasp their quality improvement now is phenomenal. And they're the ones that drive a lot of what we do now because of this project. In our procedure clinic, we decreased our wait times by 17%. We decreased our appointment time by 30%, by 16 minutes. And so now our clinic comes. And this was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. We still huddle every day. I was there on Tuesday. We huddle, we went over every patient. Our times are still good, our wait times are still low, and we're still rocking. So I'm going to move to these last slides fairly quickly, just so we have some time for questions. After we're done, we standardized everything. And standardization is the key to long-term success. This is the Toyota production system. As you can see, standardization helps build the foundation. And standardization is how do we do it the same way every time? And that's how we improve, all right? And it's getting a lot more common in how we do a lot of research. This is a simple PubMed search, and you can see that quality improvement and standardization have dramatically increased in how much we write about it. We use standards all the time, all right? And how we treat for our patients and our guidelines. And there's academic articles all over the place, and yet we don't apply them to so many of the things that we think may be simple in our offices, like how the patient, right? So when I give this talk in person, I ask people to draw this on a blank piece of paper. I wish we could have done that today, but given we just students tomorrow. And then I asked them to draw this. This is obviously from the University of Michigan, and this is on a product from a quality improvement project. Yeah. And then I asked people to draw it. And here's what they draw. So you think about how everything looked in the beginning with the big pictures and how this looks. They're dramatically similar. And the reason why is because everybody starts with the same lens. That's quality improvement, because now everybody's in the same place. Because now you could probably look at this and say, there are some better ways I think we could get this everybody on the same page. Maybe we change the numbers around to make it actually make sense. Or maybe we start just in each quadrant and an individual slide. People have had wonderful ideas of how to make this particular process better. They never would have had it had we not given them a standard of which to begin. Another thing I do, sometimes we do it in person, is we do it with Legos. And the top one is everybody has the same Legos. We're asking them to build it. And then we give them instructions and we get the one on the bottom. So I think it's phenomenal. I mean, people who have these, just think so differently. When we all work together, we can achieve wonderful results and all be on the same page. So a quick summary, the proper QI culture fosters ideas and we get at learning why. Okay, that's the goal. Why are we having trouble? Not what do we need to do to fix it. And people miss the why. If you miss the why, you will struggle. It takes the team. All right. The team is what makes you successful. If we can build wonderful teams, we can have wonderful success. Nobody can do this work on their own. It is too complicated. It takes too many people. Start small. It'll be more difficult than you think it will be, I promise you. Communicate, communicate, communicate. All right. If I hope that is one of the things that we have gotten across effectively today, is how important communication is and how differently we all may see the ideas that come out. And then once you figure out something where you're on the right track, standardization is the key. Same way, every time, every day, and then improve from there. Happy to take any questions at this moment. Let's see, there's one in here. Yeah, so Sarah, I think that's a great question. I think starting by mapping at the beginning, you're more likely to be successful. And that's why this work is hard, right? It takes work. And I don't know if those things are working in your clinic or not. We knew that they were working ours because what the map showed. If your problems are the same, then yeah, it will probably work. But mapping it will tell you where your problems lie. And the way you do a process map is just get a piece of paper, just follow the patient around and watch what happens. And you may say, well, I don't have enough staff to do that. I would counter that with, I don't know if you can afford not to do that, if you want to get your clinic better. We just had somebody watch 70 patients and then watch 40, and that's a couple of days, right? For those huge dividends. You talk about a low amount of work for a dramatic improvement, and I would do that 100 times over. So, Brittany, yeah, that's great. So there are a number of resources out there on how to do a process map. It's in a lot of lean courses. You can Google lean process map. If you want to, I can try to find some of those and I can give them to the AUA and see if they can send them out several products. I don't know if we can do that or not, but I'll check. But if you just Google how to make a process map, it will show you. It is essentially with a pencil and a piece of paper and following where the way that people do it. And I'm happy to, if you reach out to me, Brittany, I'm happy to send you some of mine that you can have with as a base to look at kind of how we did what we did. And my email's in the AUA website, so that should be easy. So Barry, I'm getting at has your system that includes buying and contribution turnover and call-ins? Will you please clarify what you mean by call-ins? Is that bringing in people on the weekends to do cases, or bringing extra people, or people calling in because they don't want to come to work? Here's your first part, reduce our staff turnover. Yes. And so now we actually have people wanting to switch into the departments which do more quality improvement because they realize that they have the power to change how their day looks. All right. So we have people moving in and try to get into our groups and where we are. We have a tech position open now. We've had several applications of people wanting to get in. So yes, it has reduced some of our turnover for those reasons. The people who leave because they move or because they find a job that may be more financially favorable, that we obviously can't help it all this. I got you. Yeah. I hope that explains it very. So the standardized coverage part changes here. Yeah, so usually, Marie, if you're in a leadership position or your leaders are on board, the best way to do it is, hey, just give it a chance. Right, just try it. I mean, you always have early adopters, mid adopters, and late adopters. And with some of our OR projects, it was a year before some people came around, but they just kept seeing success after success, and they're getting better and better, and then they'll come around. That's difficult, right? And that's why you need leadership. All right. And they see the leadership is involved, engaged, and behind you in what you're doing. A lot of times those people will give it a shot. If they don't, then I would encourage you to shrink what you want to do and find people that are engaged. And so that's usually where we start. That's why we start a lot of these the problems that are brought to us, because those people are engaged. And when we show we can win and make things better, then other people come along. Yeah, so how do we balance standardization and exceptional circumstances? Agree 100%. Okay. If you mean by some things are just different, that's true. And so what you want to do is look at the process of what happens most of the time. All right, we don't want to design a process for a thing that happens 2% of the time. There's a concept called runners, repeaters, and strangers, and the runners are the ones that happen every day. All right, they are not the exception. That's where you want to focus your standardization. All right, does it really behoove you a lot to work toward standardizing stuff that doesn't happen very often? Yeah, Alvin, that's a tough one. And it's a struggle because a lot of leaders do not know how to do good quality improvement, and getting them bought in can be difficult. If you can't get them bought in, it's challenging. Hopefully you can frame your discussion in a way that they understand the problem and you can get them to come see. And again, they don't have to understand exactly what you are doing. They just need to say, I'll be supportive, I'll show up, I'll help you with accountability. And that's really what you need. And that is arguably among the most difficult barriers to overcome is when leaders don't get it. And they don't believe it's worthwhile. It is really, really hard to be successful because then your frontline staff feel like they're worthless. So Adam, that's a great question. So when we started, I went to the hospital leadership. I went to C-suite. And we talked about quality improvement, we talked about incentives, but because those people don't work for me. I mean, I'm the chief of surgery here, but they still don't work for me, right? They are not part of this team's leadership structure. There's a different part of the institution that controls that. But when you start to have these conversations and people realize the pain that these processes are imparting on people and our patients, a lot of times they'll get behind it, right? And so you have to go talk to those people, and that's why communication is so key, and that's why it's hard, right? A lot of times I don't want to go talk to anybody. We have enough stuff to do, we're busy, but the dividends are massive. And so when you can help with incentives and accountability, that's when you're going to help move toward increased success, and that can be difficult. And you got to get them to see the story, and that's part of our job as good leaders, right? Is to be able to help other leaders or other people up the chain see the story that we're trying to tell.
Dr. Harris, there's a question from the Q&A. Have you noticed any difference in efficiencies in practices where doctors share in profits versus production-based? Eat what you kill.
I think that is a wonderful question. We are all in the same compensation model in this environment, so I have not seen that or had the opportunity to see if there's a big difference. The way that I would spin it if I was in that environment is everybody wants to go home on time, right? So either one, even if you have somebody who's salary based, people want to go home, they want to have a good day, they don't want to be frustrated. Eat what you kill. That's an easy argument, right? More efficient or more efficiency too. That's probably the way that I would approach it. I have not said that specifically. I think it's one of the questions. Thank you all for being so interactive. Wonderful, wonderful questions. I hope this was helpful. I hope that this arms you all with some tools to help you be successful where you want to try to do quality improvement. My email address again on the AUA website. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Happy to help you any way that I can. Happy to send you any of our maps and some of the highlights of how we do what we do. And happy to do those kind of things. Just want to hit a quick plug for EKIPS, which is Engaged with Quality Improvement Patient Safety. This is also on the AUA website. This is part of the KIPS committee where we have cool QI projects. And you can see a picture here. This may look familiar to you because it was in this presentation, those blue arrows, where you can go see what people are doing. Or if you're doing interesting things for quality improvement, go find people to help work with you on those things. Or once you may want to make a multi-institutional collaborate. So give that a look. Again, we appreciate each one of you all. I appreciate that, Adam. Yeah, I felt a lot in the beginning too. It took me several years to be able to make that how to fell slide because I did every one of them. So I appreciate those comments and I appreciate that. Well, thank you all for those kind comments. I appreciate it.
All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. If you all have any additional questions, please feel free to send them to quality@auanet.org and we can field them to Dr. Harris. I just want to thank everyone for joining today and being so interactive. Dr. Harris, thank you for such a great webinar.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate each one of you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.